6 o'clock. We'll start the meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody for coming out. Bill, if you'd like to introduce our experts.
Did you hear that?
He's not talking about us, at least me.
Well, I think everybody knows me. I'm Delegate Bill Hamilton, representing most of Upshur County. We have with us tonight Lynn Phillips with Governor's Office. That's over here shuffling papers around and trying to hide behind that sign. We have Bob Ashley, who's the Governor's legislative liaison, and he's also a former delegate and senator. And when I came in, he tried to mentor me and he gave up on me. And then we have Brian Cooper with Department of Highways. He was District 7. He's administrator and engineer at District 7. So you want me to start it off or
You go right ahead.
okay, I'm on a roll, huh?
You're on the roll.
I got to do this in 55 minutes down at City Hall again. So, there's been a lot of comments made against this road bond, and they're totally false what they're telling people. There will not be any new taxes. The taxes were already done. They were voted on when we were in special session. Now, when you read the bond tomorrow, if you go vote, early vote, or whenever you go early vote, the bond reads that we have to do taxes. And the reason it does, we passed the bond referendum when we were in regular session, which was the 60 days. Right at the end of the session, they thought they had a consensus on a tax to provide the funding for the bonds. And something happened, I won't get into it, with the governor's office. I think Mr. Ashley was in talking to me when it happened. But anyway, it all fell through with. So then we had to go in special session. And I think on the 17th of June, that's when we did the DMV fees. We raised those. We raised the privilege tax on automobiles when you buy a vehicle from 5% to 6%, and then the wholesale price of gasoline, which was lowered under Governor Manchin. He took it off, and then it really put the Department of Highways, and I think you might want to elaborate a little bit, but it really put them in a bad way because they lost money, for the roads. And in Upshur County, we've got promised, we're not promised, but we will get $10.3 million from the bond referendum. There's 22 projects. We've got several slippage problems in the county from mine subsidence and other things. River banks are falling in. We're going to address those. There's different highway projects. Route 20 safety improvements, I believe, is on the and we're replacing 3 bridges. The Tennerton Bridge and the bridge at French Creek over where Village Hardware used to be, there beside on Route 20. We're replacing that, and then we're replacing a bridge on the Middle Fork. So it's, I think it's a win-win for us. We took that 133 or 136 million from the DMV fees and the gasoline tax and the privilege tax, and we're going to get 136 million. Someone said, well, what if the road bond doesn't pass? Well, we'll have $136 million to fix roads. But we can bond it out if the voters will approve it. Bond it out, and we can make it 1.6 billion, which speeds up our process. If you remember, any of you that's ever been up to the Hoot Hay at Helvetia to eat, when you used to go down through Alexander, there was a 1-lane bridge. We replaced that 2 years ago. That bridge, I believe, was on the table for at least 10 years. So that's what you're going to have if it doesn't pass. You're going to get your projects done, but it's going to take a while. And so with that, I'll turn it over to these gentlemen. They'll answer every one of your questions.
Or leave a couple for you.
Well, you might, and then if they can't answer, they'll get back to you. They'll take your name and phone number and get back to you. And I'll apologize in advance. I've got to leave about, I don't know, I'll walk slow now, 6:45 to go to City Hall and do the same thing.
Thank you, Delegate. I want to say I've enjoyed, I don't know how many years we've served, but we've served many years together, several terms, and he's been a good person to work with. And he's like, always tried to be open-minded. You know, you can't go in closed-minded and have good legislation. My name is Bob Ashley, like he said, and I'm the Legislative Director for Governor Justice. It was interesting, and if you, the professor probably knows, when I was asked by the governor to take this position, the governor and I were not of the same party. And when he asked me if I would come down and talk with him, I said, but I don't know why he wants me to. I'm not of the same party as him. And he said, well, he knows and he wants you to come. So when I went down and talked with him, he talked about the roads program, the need for roads in West Virginia. And folks, I'm there with him. I knew the problems and that we do need these roads done. And he talked about education, a lot of things. And I just felt like if you want to see West Virginia progress, and he was talking about they want to get West Virginia off being 50th of everything good and first of everything bad, I thought, you know, I'm going to do what I can to help him with his program. And so we had some major bills passed in the legislature, thanks to the delegate and other good people who wanted to see good roads in West Virginia. As a matter of fact, I'll touch on some of them. You'll touch them on the slides, but I'll go ahead and talk about them a little bit. But first of all, let me say, as Bill said, when you go to the polls to vote, either tomorrow if you start early voting or on October the 7th, which is the day of the election, you do not have to worry about more taxes to pay for these bonds, pay for the roads, because the legislature, working with the governor, saw fit to go ahead and do this. And why did they do it? Because they realized if we can get these bonds passed, get work starting, get these contractors out there working with their men, we're going to have more money going into our coffers. It'll put people to work, and it will help reduce our budget deficits that we've been fighting. And so the agreement was made, and the legislature raised the wholesale level of gasoline tax 3.3 cents and made it effective July 1. What happened July 1? The big boards on the signs did not go up because we did not hit the retailers or your pocket. It did the wholesalers, and it was a tax that we used to have. And as gasoline prices kept falling, the tax kept dropping off, and over the last 3 years, we lost 3.3 cents. So we put it back to where it was. And I say we, I'm still working with Bill and others like it, because even though I'm not in the legislature, I still work with a lot of them. So I say that, and I don't mean to sound like I am in there anymore. 30 years was enough. Then the DMV fees was raised. If you go to renew your license for your auto, you'll go, instead of paying $30 a year, you'll pay $50. And one of the reasons why they looked at that particular item was, it's kind of a user fee, of course, but the DMV fees have not been raised since I was in college. And I'm sure you all can look at me and tell it's been a long time since I was in college. But they were raised in the early 70s and had stayed static. And in trying not to hurt people, they did that. And then also, as you trade your cars, the difference, you always paid 5 cents on the tax, you'll pay 6 cents. And that again was going back into the 70s when that tax was implemented. So that will bring in about the different estimates, but they think it's about 130 million on average a year, which is more than enough to pay off the bond. Now, the bond issue, a lot of people say, gosh, why are you doing this? I had a couple of talking to me one day, and they were saying, why are you all doing this? I've never heard of it. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Did you vote in 1996 for the bond? Do you remember voting for the bond issue in 1996? Well, I don't know, did we have one? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I never missed voting, so I voted for it. And I said, we are paying off the 1996 bonds this fiscal year. So they will be done, and what the state has always done in the past, once those are paid off, then we will implement a new bond. Well, we will go to the voters and ask them to implement a new bond. Another question that I've had a lot of people ask, why do you all do a general revenue bond? It's in the Constitution of the state of West Virginia. If we do general revenue bonds, you have to go to the voters for approval. And the language on the ballot is pretty much the language that has to be on the ballot to match the Constitution. What it says, what it says is that if you vote for the $1.6 billion road bond that Senator Carnage just walked in the back of the room. So if you vote for the, well, I'll just read it, I just handed it to me. To provide for and implement the construction of safe roads in the state by the issuance of bonds not to exceed $1.6 billion in the aggregate to be paid for by the state road fund and the collection of annual state taxes as provided by the legislature by general law. And so the money is being collected and will be collected, and the legislature, and we've done this after the 96 election, after the 96 vote on the road bond, then the money will be taken from the road fund and put over here to pay for our general obligation bonds. So taxes have been raised. We just need your approval to start doing roads. Now, one of the interesting things that we hear about, what's the bond rate? What's the bond rate? Well, right now, if we can get this approved and get to the market in an appropriate time, they are expecting the bond rate to be about 3.5%, which is, it could be a little lower, but we were told to expect 3.5%. And that's a very good rate for bonds right now. West Virginia has always done well in selling their bonds, and we're always known for paying for them, and so we should get a very favorable rate. We should get a lot of attention when our bonds go to the market. The construction of right now, the inflation rate is down. It has been high, and during the boom of the 2000s, and if you look at that up to the date, they say it's about 65%. But I've been told the last 2 or 3 or 4 years in the area, it's about 4%. So the inflation rate, there's been some contracts that the state has let that actually we have expected it to cost more than what it has cost. So can't say that on a whole, but that's the climate we're in right now. So that's why it's so important that you all consider this and vote for this, because it is it's a great opportunity for us to do it. One of the things that you may or may not know, our general revenue budget our special revenue budget for the roads is $1.1 billion, and that's a lot of money. What do you think our road budget was for the state road special revenue account was 10 years ago? $1.1 billion. So it has not gained, and our buying power is a lot less than what it was. And out of that $1.1 billion, about $300 million goes for the employees. The employees, the trucks, the buildings, the money for that. $400 million comes in from the federal government. We match with $100 million to do the interstate highways, what work is done on the interstate highways, the corridors, and most of that is maintenance. Then it leaves about $350 to $400 million of secondary road maintenance, all maintenance, new construction, bridges. I mean, it's really has stretched the budget. And one of the things that I have told 2 or 3 people when we've been talking quietly, and especially you, Professor, quietly, think of your age. Add up to 33 years to that. Because right now, if you are fortunate enough to have a road paver in front of your house, we are on a 1 in 31 to 33 year paving cycle. So in other words, some of us probably won't see the paver again in front of our house if we don't do it. Back in the 80s, 90s, when I was in the legislature, we were very fortunate. We were on a 1 to every 10 to 12 year cycle. So that's what has happened with the inflation with the budget. I will stop right here. Brian wants to go over some slides with you. I'll talk about it a little bit. I'll come back, say a few more words, and then I'm ready for questions whenever you all are. But we'll let Brian go and then let you all ask your questions after. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity to come here and speak to you regarding the bond referendum. I'm coming on October 7th, and like these gentlemen said, the early voting starts tomorrow. So I've got a brief presentation. I'll try not to bore you to death with slides, but there's a lot of good information in here. A lot of what Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Ashley's already parlayed to you, but I'll go over it again briefly. Once I get through that, hopefully that'll answer some of your questions. I know it will answer all of them, and if you all have any other questions after that, then I'll be happy to take those questions at that time. Roads to prosperity. That's kind of what the governor has labeled this program, his initiative. After he took office, he wanted to work with legislature to create an economic recovery. And from the very beginning, they focused on highways as being the centerpiece of that recovery. Why highways? Well, for economic recovery, it's job creation and job growth. And we need it immediately. The governor wants it immediately, legislature wants it immediately. Roads are a good vehicle to provide immediate jobs. So the governor went to Secretary of Transportation, Tom Smith, and asked for a list of all projects that are on the books that have been worked on in some aspect. They've been vetted through the system. They've been identified as needs. And some of them may have just had a design study on it to identify what needs to be done. Some may have had some environmental work. Maybe the environmental clearance is complete. Maybe they have complete designs and are ready to go to construction if they had the funding. These are the projects that we can get out the quickest. These are the most expensive projects we have. And if you watched the State of the State address, you would have seen this board there as a portion of it, identifying those jobs on that list. You can see on there, well, it's not in Upshur County, but it's nearby, and it affects this county, is the I-79, exit 99 interchange. A lot of you travel that quite often, and it's a problem we'd like to address. It's a safety concern there. So he had a plan to work with highways, improve the infrastructure. We have a need. There's roads in need out there. And he had a plan on how to pay for that. So he went to the legislature, worked with them, and a lot of these have already been mentioned, but these 5 bills right here were key to the payment or to the implementation of the governor's initiative. The first one is the private-public partnership. That's really not anything new. It's been around a little bit. It just so happens that original legislation was set to sunset this year, which would prohibit us from using it past that. And that bill extends that legislation to 2023. You look at the design bill, again, that's nothing new. It's something we've implemented. Another means to get projects out and get them constructed. That one basically increased the monetary amount that can be expended for design build projects. Give us another tool to work with. And then you've got another bill there dealing with Garvey bonds. And that increased the maximum bonding authority from $200 million to $500 million. One thing I'd like to point out, we're going to be talking, with the mention of Garvey bonds, there's a distinction between those and the general obligation bonds that you're being asked to approve on October 7th. Garvey bonds, basically, you're borrowing against future federal dollars. As Bob had said, we get X amount of dollars every year from federal government. Those Garvey bonds allow us to sell a special type of bonds that are repaid with a portion of that federal money we receive every year. You have Senate Bill 1003, deals with parkways, and basically that extends the tolling on the turnpike, and it allows us to leverage the money off those tolls into 10 counties in that area. You'll probably wonder how that affects this area. And I have another slide later on that I'll try to explain that a little better. And then the last one you see up there deals with the gas tax, the DMV fees, and the vehicle sales tax. And that's the big one. That's the mechanism that the legislature passed, to provide the funds to pay for these bonds if the voters approve. So that's already been done, as has been stated here. Everybody's paying those days. They went into effect July 1. So regardless of the outcome on October 7th, those taxes and fee increases are in place and it will stay in place. Okay, we have here, it's actually the map where we're going to. Basically a map that shows the geographical distribution of all the projects that have been identified through various ways, as the commission likes to call it. This isn't just a general obligation attack here on it, on our road system. They've attacked it from different angles, and the general obligation, of course, is the biggest mechanism to fix our roads. But we have other things that are in place currently, and it's a comprehensive plan, and I think it's a good plan. But you can see that different types of projects scattered all throughout the state, various types of projects from slips and slides to repaving, bridge replacements, interstate reconstruction, expansion projects, a wide variety in scope and size, but every county in the state is represented on that map. Okay, so what we have now, we have the legislation in place, and we have our plans, we have projects identified, and we have identified all 55 counties, totaling over 500 projects. That depends a lot on your approval to let us sell the bonds. Okay, this is the slide dealing with the Turnpike and the Parkways bond bill. Basically what that did, like I said, it allows us to sell bonds in those 10 counties that are highlighted that are around the Turnpike area and fund projects off the Turnpike within those counties. And most people look at that and say, well, how does that affect anybody else in the other 45? What happens is, without this legislation, all those projects in those 10 counties were lumped into a pool and they competed with projects statewide. By having another mechanism that we can fund those projects in those counties, especially the larger, more expensive ones, we take that out of our general pool, pay for it over here, and it frees up money that we can spend in the other 45 counties. So you can't just look at it really as the general obligation bond issue. And there's a lot of things in play here, and it all works together to create a plan. List a few of the projects that have been identified for the first installment of these bonds. Work on the King Cole Highway, Route 10, and some bridge replacements scattered throughout those 10 counties, all much needed. Okay, the general obligation bond. Okay, the first installment, basically, if this is passed, we will sell bonds over a period of 4 years. The first installment is going to be the largest, identified over $700 million worth of highway projects. And most of those are listed, not all of them, but some of them are listed there. Like I said, the project on I-79 at exit 99 is one of those scheduled and slated to go in the first installment. And again, this has been mentioned repeatedly, but I think it bears mentioning again. There is no more new taxes. Regardless of what happens with the vote, the taxes are in place. And the legislature put that in place to pay for this. If the voters approve it, it's there. And more importantly, it fixes our road and creates jobs. There's basically 3 types of jobs. I mean, the most obvious is the direct jobs. Those are the men and women that work on the construction projects building our roads. think a little bit further than that, there's indirect jobs. It takes material. And so all the factories, plants, vendors that supply material for these projects, it will affect them, and create jobs there. There's also induced jobs. That comes from the community around that project, whether it be lodging, whether it be from restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, what have you. Workers are in the area, they got money to spend, they're going to spend money. They'll take your family out to dinner more often, what have you. But those are the induced jobs. So a common question that you get is, everybody asks, well, what happens if the referendum don't pass? Well, first and foremost, we miss an opportunity for economic recovery, for job creation, and to fix our roads in a more expeditious manner. We're working to fix the roads, like Mr. Hamilton says, we have to prioritize, and it may take a while to get to all of them. It will take a while to get to all of them. This allows us to accelerate that schedule quite a bit. You also see the pie chart there. The green represents the $1.6 billion that will be generated from the bond sale. If that doesn't pass, that big wedge of that pie disappears. And we have to go back to the drawing board and reprioritize our projects and construct them as funding allows. Okay, there's also a cost to doing nothing. I think Bob mentioned that. Increase in construction. This is a chart from Federal Highway Administration. This isn't just from West Virginia. This is across the nation. But I can vouch. I've been involved with developing contracts over the past 20-some years, and that cost is pretty much right on and consistent with what's happening here in West Virginia. 65% increase in construction cost over 13 years. And you do the math, that's a 5% increase per year average.
And that's one reason why the buying power of the $400 million that we have now just has eroded. That's why it's gone from 10 years paving to 33 years, up to 33 years of repaving. So I'm sorry, I just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah. So if you compare the 5% increase every year in construction costs compared to the 3.5% interest rates on these bonds, it's actually cheaper to bond the projects and build them now, because we're kind of cheating inflation. But if we don't, we pay as we go. In the long run, we will pay more. Some of the notes here, based on that 5% rate of increase, 13 years from now, in 2030, it will take an extra $1 billion to perform the same level of work proposed today. So that $1.6 billion that we can invest in our infrastructure today, in 13 years, it would take $2.6 billion to do the same work. That's quite an increase. So, consequences, without the general obligation bond, everything's affected. You go back to the drawing board, all the waves, all the surge paving, all the DMV pay-as-you-go we've been doing, the gardening bonds have to be reevaluated. Everything. We have to lump everything back into that big pot statewide. All those projects compete statewide. And we have to reprioritize, and we build them as our funding allows. And we'll continue to drive on dangerous roads. I believe that picture in US 10 there had a reputation as the most dangerous highway in West Virginia. Get that shut down later.
Close that window.
Just go to hit shut down later, right? No. Shut down. Right there. Thank you. Sorry about that. But it has a reputation of being the most dangerous highway in West Virginia. And highway department, we take traffic data, accident data. And there's numbers to back that up, and that's not the only highway that's dangerous. We might not have whole stretches of road that are completely dangerous, but everybody knows in certain areas that are safety concerns, accident-prone areas. And if we don't, if we fail to invest adequately in our infrastructure, we experience poor performance and more deterioration. Unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but I know I've seen bridges from the surface may look good. If you get underneath of them and you see something like that, it's not a good feeling. And lastly, the map I have on there, has all the projects statewide that's been identified. If you go to the Department of Transportation's website there, listed on the screen, and click on the big red button up there, you'll see a comprehensive list of every project in every county, and you can study that, look it over, at your convenience. I encourage everybody to do that. But last, I hope that this was at least somewhat informative. My goal is, when you guys go to the polling booth, I want you to have all the information you need to make an educated, well-informed decision, whatever that decision is. That's what the purpose of this presentation was. And also, I encourage you to go vote. You exercise your right to vote. With that, unless anybody has...
If I could say one thing, a couple other things. First of all, the bridge, they tell me there's several bridges like that on these secondary roads. We've got to get the bridges that say. This is a big opportunity for West Virginia and the government. That's why I'm here with this information, just to try to help you all make your decisions. We want you to have a lot of information before you vote, because as I said, it's a unique opportunity for us to come in with better interest rates, a better inflation rate on construction. It means West Virginia will get the biggest bang for the buck. And when you look at what the governor has talked about, and then what Brian had up there, the $1.6 billion on the road bond, the general obligation bond that you all be voting on, the Garvey bonds, which are the anticipation of the federal money coming in. It's a certain mechanism that the federal government set up that states can use to do projects and receive federal money coming in to pay it off over a period of years. And with the continuation of the tolls on the turnpike, that's about a $90 million, $80–90 million sum that cannot go in and be absorbed with the $350–400 million road fund that we have now to do roads. So these are information we think you all need to know. The governor has rolled out an aggressive package for West Virginia to get us moving, with all what I talked about $3.56 billion new construction package. And if you take what the Duke study says about employment, it's about 40-some thousand at a peak of employees working in West Virginia. Most of our projects will be let, so contractors in West Virginia will have a fair shot at it. And with some language that's in the code now, we will be using people within 75 miles for the job. So we have an opportunity to put West Virginians to work. We have an opportunity to make it safer for you to drive. And it's an opportunity when roads improve, when quality of life improves, and usually economic development comes along, and that it also helps improve. So ladies and gentlemen, the governor thinks you deserve to drive on better roads, and that's what we're here for now. Any questions? I take the easy ones. Brian and Glenn gets the hard ones, and we can go from there. Yes, ma'am.
I came in a few minutes late, so forgive me if this was already answered, but how did you do your assessment of which roads needed to be corrected?
What I understand from Secretary Tom Smith, Secretary of Transportation Tom Smith, the governor told him there's a lot of roads that have been out there that we want to build, want to redesign. There's not been any money. Some of them go back to the 70s. And he said, let's roll them up and let's get them ready and let's go. And so that's how a lot of them came. A lot of the bridges are from studies that they put weight limits on. They've done everything to try to increase the life of the bridge, and those bridges will be replaced. So it's a lot of need that has been out there that is why it's on the list,
So
candidates list.
there's people out doing assessments all the time, and you keep.
Well, they've done it over years, yes ma'am.
And you keep like a running list?
Yes, yes, they have done that over the years.
Is that list available to the public?
Yes, it was, the list was on that computer, go back to that screen.
Okay.
We got it.
You got it? Yep, okay. Yeah, that's right, it's here. I'm not used to having these. He was good and brought it.
I want to expand on
Right
that.
here.
We talk about people going out and doing evaluation. That is especially true on bridges. There's federal requirements we're required to inspect bridges on a periodic cycle of 2 to 4 years, depending on the type of bridge and where it's at. So we have bridge inspectors, which that's all they do every day. They go out and they inspect these bridges, they take pictures, they take measurements, they evaluate them, and then they take it back to engineers who take that information and evaluate it to see if it needs to be posted for a weight restriction or what have you, determine what repairs need to be done, and then they are scheduled and we work at them as best we can. But they're also prioritized based on the severity. If they're being structurally deficient or worse, those move to the top of the list.
Thank you.
Yes,
Do you believe that the reputation that state road workers have, as in like they just stand there and smoke a cigarette, will hold any effect on the
I've
bond
got a
pass?
lot of state workers that are bond free, and I know how hard they work.
So you don't think that will have an effect on the passage of the bond?
This is going to be contractors, a lot of them. There'll be state workers doing the local, some of the secondary paving. You all have pavers and do some of that and pull ditches and a lot of things, but this will be, a lot of this will be done by contracts.
We, but most of, kind of elaborate on that, most of our employees do the maintenance. We do patching, we pull shoulders, pull ditches, we cut the vegetation, things like that. Of course, we treat the roads in the wintertime and plow. We have bridge crews that do bridge repairs. We even do some small bridge replacements. And we do a little bit of paving. We have for the past few years. We get a few pavers around and we'll do on some of the secondary routes, smaller jobs and do that. But predominantly, the larger paving jobs, any reconstruction, new construction, or large bridge replacement, all goes to contract.
Yes,
I'm just wondering about the wages. Are they gonna have to federal mandatory to pay these Bacon Act? I think the Bacon Act they call it.
yes. If there's federal money used, there will be the
They
Davis
have to
Bacon
pay
Act.
that kind of wages. You have to pay that kind of wages,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, if we get federal money with it.
Will they be using in-state workers if the most of it if they can, or are they gonna?
If it is,
If they're
from what I have been told, if there is federal money used in the project, then we have to go off the Davis Bacon.
Okay.
Which means what? In
It's
terms
a
of
higher,
rate?
it's a set rate, and it's a
I know
labor
they're
rate.
$40 to $60 like for a fireman. I know it's expensive.
Yeah, and I can't tell you what it is
I
on
know
Davis Bacon.
some working these and
Yeah.
the price is outrageous. I mean, to me it is.
Yeah. Yes,
If I might throw out there, Bob, and you were there in the Senate, and thanks for coming up here to talk about this.
yeah,
When there is no federal money
That's right.
involved, we're going to save probably tens of millions of dollars because of the repeal of prevailing wage that you and I and the legislature did. And so we're going to get a lot more work done
there will be.
because of the
state
work that
roads.
you and I did as senators down in Charleston, isn't that true?
They need a decent wage. I'm not knocking that.
No, we all agree on the decent wage aspect, but you're right, some of the wages were absolutely outrageous, and now we've got a little bit more in line with reality.
Yes, yes, sir. I thought I saw a hand, but was your hand up? I couldn't
Yeah, but I
tell.
already, okay. Just as a matter of clarification on what he was asking, I thought maybe that he was asking how many West Virginians would be
Oh, I thought he was talking
hired.
about the Davis Bacon Act.
No,
Yeah,
no,
right, but
that's required if it's
The
federal.
money,
Yeah, it is.
does the federal money say that you can hire from anywhere? Is that what you meant when you
No,
said
no.
Davis Bacon?
No, Davis Bacon was a certain act that on how you pay.
Okay.
So on the other part, our law, we have a law of local, do you remember what it's been a number of years since I read it. But it comes, you local employees, and it comes from a radius around the state, and we have to use West Virginians first. Now, some people can bring some of their employees, their management and all that, if they would come in from out of state.
Okay.
But let me say something. If you're along the Virginia border, if you're along the Ohio border, Pennsylvania, what have you, local is considered across the border, because we're local for them when they have their jobs, they're local for us.
Right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Question. The $1.6 billion bond
Yes, sir.
is totally separate from the $1.1 billion that they use on the roads now.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
so the 1.6 is not going to take the place of the 1.1.
It's,
But the 1.1 will still be able to repair roads. and
yes,
use-
now, don't say that all the 1.1 is
No, I
for
know.
the roads. It's about,
Administration.
yeah, yes,
But-
okay.
But it's what we're using
We'll be
now.
bigger, we'll be able to do more with the, that money, yes, because when you're out replacing a bridge or widening a road or doing whatever, out of the $350 to $400 million that we have, and we're going to do it with some of the bonds, that's on some of the projects, then we can go on more with secondary roads and do a lot better for the citizens. Any other questions? Did I say, yes, ma'am?
I have another question.
That's no problem.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I know that a lot of the bridges have weight limits, and those weight limits are not being observed. There's a lot of heavy trucks, industry trucks that cross bridges, and there's nobody there to see. I mean, you don't have somebody there all the time, so the enforcement isn't there. So saying that there's a weight restriction doesn't really go very far unless you're gonna put somebody out on the bridge all the time. And the second part of my question is that, you know, since we do have so many heavy trucks traveling the roads, are those industries going to contribute to the money that it takes to repair those roads and bridges?
Well, you're asking a little bit away from what the bond is. One of the things, a few weeks ago, I drove over into eastern West Virginia in a weekday, and man, did I see the weight enforcement people out. I slowed down every time I saw the blue lights, and it turned out to be those. So, not blue lights, just the lights, they weren't working, but they were watching for trucks. So I do know they do the best they can with the manpower they have. Number two, I think, and Brian could probably elaborate more, when they cross a bridge that is posted, and it causes damage, then they have a lot of problems with the state of West Virginia.
I know,
If it's reported.
Well, if they damage it.
Well, but going over the bridge 100 times is eventually gonna damage it, but if they don't take a
Well,
chunk
they
out,
pay
they might not
extra.
call it damage.
Truckers do pay extra for a lot more than what we do with our regular vehicles. I can't tell you how much. I do know they have to pay for their gross vehicular weight. And so they do pay an extra, a good premium.
I can tell you this, back in the 70s, I had trucks and drove trucks, and if there was a weight limit and I was over, I'd find another way. It wasn't worth the chance of breaking through.
That's right.
is that the signs are just like speed limit signs. They're going to work on the law-abiding citizens. There's no there's people out there that don't pay attention, and we all know that. But like he says, they run a huge risk. I know in several years back now, though, in Barber County, there was an old single-lane truss bridge, and a tractor and trailer tried to cross it, even though it was posted. Well, it was hauling junk cars from a junkyard there, the only one in the area. It collapsed. His truck's sitting there, he pulls the license plates off of it and leaves, but it was easy to pinpoint. Guess who paid for that bridge?
We're down on Auburn and build a new one.
You always have the option too of contacting the state police or the Department of Highways to make them aware when you're aware that there's a particular bridge that's being abused. And I can tell you down in Webster County, we had a situation where there were several bridges had the weight limit reduced. And then the enforcement guys sat out there at those bridges knowing that because the weight limit had been reduced, there was a high likelihood that people would be crossing them overweight. And the fines are far greater for running overweight across the bridge than for going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
That's right.
But if I see that happen and I call it in and then the truck is gone, how can I prove it happened?
They'll be watching. You don't have to prove it, they'll catch it.
But you're wanting to do is draw attention.
Who's watching?
No, what you're wanting to do, April, is draw attention to the issue, and then DOH will put people out there to watch that bridge. If they hear that it's being abused.
Public Service
regularly.
Commission. Public Service Commission does the,
The weight enforcement.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What's the status of quarter H?
It looks great to me.
No, with the budget, or with this bond?
In Tucker County, what is there, $98 million to do another, if this bond issue passes?
Of course, it's been complete to Kearns for several years now, and currently, I believe they just had a groundbreaking or going to have?
Going to have one.
And very soon, that was one of the design build projects, it was let, they designed it, they got all their permits, they're ready to break ground on the next section, takes it roughly halfway to Parsons, I believe.
Yeah.
And if you go to that website and look on the list and go under Tucker County, you'll see $90-some million.
98 million, I believe it is.
And most of that is for that next section of quarter H, which is what I'm being told would take it all the way to Parsons, tied into West Virginia 72, just north of Parsons.
There are no plans to cross the line for us with that right now, are there?
They're going across, or getting ready to go across to do it now.
Forest Service have to issue that?
What's that?
Who issues that permit?
They worked with the Forest Service, because they had to acquire right of way to them and then get all the necessary permits. And they've been talking with the Forest Service, I know, for several years now. They've got everything ironed out with them and everybody's on board and they're moving forward.
You know, I don't know if there's any more questions, but I will say something that I always enjoyed coming to Buchanan, and Bill knows this. Back a few years ago when our son went to the University of Tennessee School of Architecture, his roommate was Jameson Hupp from Buchanan, West Virginia. So I always have a soft spot. And we got to see Jameson a few weeks ago because our son got married and he was in the wedding. So any of you all know Jamie? Been a long-time friend of our family. If that's it, we appreciate you all coming. Hopefully we gave you the information to make your mind up. And as we've said earlier, yes, sir?
One thing I forgot, if you don't mind passing around, or anybody wants to come up and get one of those are a list of the projects for Upshur County.
Yeah, you all want that. But if I conclude, the governor wants you all to drive on better roads, better and safer roads, and that's why he's proposed this. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.